in a tribal society, there's a lot of humor. And some of the ways I've avoided conflict is I was very violent. Somebody come on me, I didn't care if it was King Kong, I would fight him. I wasn't always, I didn't always prevail, we'll put it that way. Nose broken a couple times, cracked ribs, broken knuckles, this sort of thing. And then one day I figured, this has got to stop. And so the first time some guy started cussing me out, I just stood there looking at him. And when he stopped talking, I said, are you finished? And he said, yes. I said, well, I just want to thank you for taking the time to do such a thorough analysis of my character. I'm sorry I don't have time to do the same for you, but thank you very much. And then I walked away from him. He was looking at me like I was crazy. But I didn't engage in conflict. I chose to do something else with it. And so when you're working in the field of any field in Western society, there's always competition. You're always afraid somebody's going to take your job, but you want to move up the ladder too. So you conceal information, you give partial information, and you just don't trust each other because, well, in a tribal society, the 4 values are 1, you trust, 2, you share, 3, you cooperate, and 4, you give back. In Western society, it's don't share, somebody will end up with more than you. Don't trust, you'll get cheated. And to get to the top, you've got to compete because you have to look out for number 1. And 4th, you can never have too much. So you got to keep grabbing. And so when you have these 2 competing factors, you have a tribal society and a capitalistic society coming together, you're going to have this tension all the time. So it really you have to change the way you perceive the world. And the way we see it is that the past is in front of me. Well, in Haida it says you always have to look back to see where you've come from. The prayer says, I ask for the strength to be strong enough to have a soft mind. In other words, to have empathy for others. I have to have the courage to be tall enough to not be small, because my stature is determined by how tall I am, not how small I make somebody else look. I ask for the clear vision to see where I've been, so that I am always aware that I'm responsible for my actions. I ask for the guidance to take me where I'm going and the protection I need on my journey. But those are the only things we ask for normally in our prayers. One of the peculiarities of the English language or the mindset is if you can hang a label on something, you think you know what it is. But that works 2 ways. If you label something as a conflict, that's what you have. So you have to find different ways of characterizing something. We had a human resources manager suggested maybe instead of conflict resolution we'd go to peacemaking. I said the moment you say that you're implying there's a war. So we have to find a different way of doing that. And in our traditional ways in Haida, we always understood the power of words. If a person, we'll say a man of substance, itlakdas, what you call chief, would take certain words and put it in a box and put the lid on and tie it on, and those words were only taken out when it was appropriate to use them. A woman's power is greater than a man's. So a woman of great calm and presence, we call Aljus, she walks in the ranks of chiefs, would put a wooden plug here in the lower lip. It made it painful for her to speak. So she would consider every word she was going to use before she uttered that first one, because of the power of words. And so in a tribal society, everybody lived either in a teepee or a longhouse, whatever. You had a number of people, so there's always the possibility of brushing against somebody to cause somebody some discomfort. So there had to be ways in which you could restore. Maybe someone has some hurt feelings, whatever, and you want to restore that back. So we would refer to it simply as restoring balance. Skagaslu. Skagaslu is a tide when it hits slack. It's not flooding or ebbing, it's reached a point of balance. And that's what we're trying to do, is to reach that point of balance. So there were different ways in which that was accomplished, but primarily, if I cause somebody some discomfort, I give them a gift. And I say, this is because of what I did. We don't say I'm sorry, we don't apologize. Apologizing is like if you drop a plate on the floor and it breaks and you say I'm sorry, it doesn't put it back together. So a gift is a little bit different. If I give you a gift, a gift is given because it's deserved, never to incur an obligation. So if I give you a gift, you don't even say thank you because you're giving me back a gift. You simply say yes, you accept the gift. And so once the gift is accepted, the balance is restored. So when we start trying to do these things working as a social worker, the trick is to watch very carefully, listen for feelings. And that's what we do to relieve tension. There's a real art to doing it. But it's a very common practice, and a lot of Europeans don't understand that. And they don't understand that if they're being teased, it's because they like you. If they don't tease you, they probably don't like you very much. A lot of times people ask questions of things they saw in the movies, and that's not exactly a good thing to do. If you listen, they'll tell you everything you need to know. When I went to New Zealand, this Maori elder came and got me and said, we're going over to the marae, this clan house, I guess you might call it. And he said, I'll help you. So as we got close, he would whisper to me what I should do or what I should not do. But I just watched him, and I watched the reaction of the people, and no problem. And I found that true regardless of which indigenous peoples it is. It's all that non-verbal communication. It's watching the body language. And also listening for when somebody says something to you, pay attention because they might be joking with you. I do it to my students a lot. I'll be telling them about Haida history, the old oral history, and I said sometimes, it's very much like the ancient Egyptians. For example, they have a story about this. I'm a little bit fuzzy on the details because I was quite young at the time, but this is kind of how we tell it, and most of my students won't catch that in ancient Egypt, I was a young man at that time, I was quite young at that time. But they do that because when they catch you trying to get ahead of the story, they'll pull something like that on you. Or sometimes you listen and they'll have a joking finish to what they're saying because that is how they're saying, this is very important. My grandmother, she had two names, Hangundals, it's a deep sea rolling wave, and Stai Toai Klewas, that's a woman with precious healing hands. But she told me, when you want people to know how serious something is, in a joking way, you say, "Die Arthur suchen." My spirit says so too.